He told Walter Cronkite last winter that there were unknown risks in an actual declaration of war on North Vietnam.
I didn't ask for a declaration of war because I didn't know what treaty China might have with North Vietnam, or Russia might have with North Vietnam. The communists have these agreements among themselves. And if we declared war against North Vietnam, that might automatically declare war against China and bring them in, trigger the thing, or the Soviet Union.
The president, you remember, was in the midst of a campaign for the presidency. His platform was, I'm against the widening of the war. He used to say in his speeches, I am not about to send American boys to Asia to fight the battles that Asian boys should fight, and similar statements. Barry Goldwater was supposed to be the warmonger and the hawk. And this is one reason I was taken in. I was supporting the idea of Johnson. So a declaration of war is just the opposite of what this was represented to be. This was a resolution to prevent a war. Now, I think if he'd come in for a war, the country would have been shocked. I don't think they had any idea of going to war in this way.
But I didn't want any doubt about the American Congress. Anyone served in Congress 25 years, as I had served in Congress, wasn't about to undertake the responsibilities and the dangers that I had in South Vietnam without the Congress being with me. And the Congress was with me before that resolution went up. Every single man in that room recommended it and advocated it. But when the going got hard, when the road got longer and dustier, when the casualties started coming in, why, there's certain folks started looking for the cellar. I know a good many of them have, and I don't question their right to do so. I don't even criticize them for taking that position if that's what their conscience dictates. But I just wish their conscience had been operating when they were making all these other decisions, because Congress gave us this authority in August 1964 to do whatever may be necessary. That's pretty far-reaching. That's the sky's the limit.
At the time, I referred to it as another sinking of the Maine.
Suggesting?
Well, you know what the best historical advice is in regard to the sinking of the Maine. It was a deliberate act on the part of the United States to have an excuse to go to a war against Spain. The Gulf of Tonkin was a deliberate, aggressive act on the part of the Johnson administration to justify making war against North Vietnam.
3 weeks after the Tonkin incident, the Maddox put into Subic Bay in the Philippines. Investigators from the Pentagon came aboard and interrogated most of the crew. Testimony only of those who thought they had seen enemy action was later presented to the Fulbright Committee. No testimony from those who thought nothing was there. Former Senator Wayne Morse.
Well, don't pay any attention to what the military says after the fact to make a case before the fact. If you rely upon the American military for credibility, then you're easy prey.
I thought that it was a matter of real concern that planted stories intended to serve a national purpose abroad came home and were circulated here and believed here, because this would mean that the CIA could manipulate the news in the United States by channeling it through some foreign country. Now, we're looking at that very carefully.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
At CBS, we had been contacted by the CIA. As a matter of fact, by the time I became the head of the whole news and public affairs operation in 1954, relationships had been established, and I was told about them and asked if I'd carry on with them.
We have quite a lot of detailed information, and we will evaluate it, and we will include any evidence of wrongdoing or any evidence of impropriety in our final report and make recommendations.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to the national news services, AP and UPI?
Well, again, I think we're getting into the kind of detail, Mr. Chairman, that I'd prefer to handle in executive session.
Senator, do you think that you named the news organizations in your final report?
That remains to be decided.
I think it was entirely in order for our correspondents at that time to make use of CIA agent chiefs of station and other members of the executive staff of CIA as sources of information which were useful in their assessments of world conditions.
Would you say that continues today?
Well, I would think probably for a reporter it would continue today, but because of all of the revelations of the period of the 1970s, it seems to me that a reporter's got to be much more circumspect in doing it now, or he runs the risk of at least being looked at with considerable disfavor by the public. I think you've got to be much more careful about it.
I appeared before the Congressional Committee, the highest representation of the American people, under subpoena to tell what I knew of activities which I believe might lead to an attempt to set up a fascist dictatorship. The plan as outlined to me was to form an organization of veterans, to use as a bluff, or as a club at least, to intimidate the government and break down our democratic institutions. The upshot of the whole thing was that I was supposed to lead an organization of 500,000 men, which would be able to take over the functions of government. I talked with an investigator for this committee who came to me with a subpoena on Sunday, November 18th. He told me they had unearthed evidence linking my name with several such veteran organizations. As it then seemed to me to be getting serious, I felt it was my duty to tell all I knew of such activities to this committee. My main interest in all this is to preserve our democratic institution. I want to retain the right to vote, the right to speak freely, and the right to write. If we maintain these basic principles, our democracy is safe. No dictatorship can exist with suffrage, freedom of speech, and press.